Out with the old and in with the totally awesome. It's 1987 and radical ninja pizza extremism has taken over the world. Hi, I'm Dan Larson and this is the history of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird met in 1981 when Kevin was attempting to sell his illustration work to a small free local newspaper in Northampton, Massachusetts. The paper had no use for his work, but referred him to Peter, who had a portfolio of work similar to his, and hey, maybe they could be friends or something. They got together at Peter's apartment and immediately bonded over not just their love of comics in general, but the work of Jack Kirby in particular. In 1983, Peter and his girlfriend, who were living in New Hampshire, invited Kevin to move in with them instead of making trips back and forth from his home in Maine. Peter was just squeaking by doing illustration work for hire. Kevin got a job working in a restaurant. Living together meant they could set up a little studio, even if in name only, and try to sell some of their collaborative comics work to a publisher. And thus began Mirage Studios, so named because it wasn't actually a studio. It was like a couple of desks and a phone in their apartment with a logo. In 1984, while developing a comic called Fugitoid, Kevin handed Peter a drawing of a turtle standing upright wearing a mask with nunchucks strapped to his forearms. The very idea of Bruce Lee's speed and agility superimposed on a turtle was, at that moment, hilarious to Kevin. Peter did his own take on the idea, making some adjustments, some improvements, and handed that back to Kevin. Kevin wasn't going to let Peter have the last laugh. He increased the number of turtles, the difficulty level, to 4 and gave them each their own set of weapons and added the title Ninja Turtles. Peter inked the drawing and in the process added Teenage Mutant to the title. They both had a laugh and that could have been the end of it, but the idea stuck in both their brains. They realized that there was some potential for this thing that they had just birthed by accident. They needed a story, an origin, some names. Eastman and Laird were both big comics fans, and Eastman in particular was heavily influenced by Frank Miller's work on Daredevil and Ronin. The initial Turtles concept was part homage to Miller's Daredevil comics and part spin-off from it. In fact, in the story they developed, the Turtles are mutated by the very same canister of science goo that gave Daredevil his powers after it hit Matt Murdock right in the face, then spilled into the sewers. Daredevil was trained by a guy named Stick and fights against a ninja clan called the Hand, while the Turtles were trained by a mutated rat named Splinter and fight against a ninja clan called the Foot. Eastman and Laird originally wanted their turtles to have Japanese names. Unfortunately, they couldn't come up with anything that sounded legitimately Japanese enough, so they turned to a book on the Italian Renaissance they had in the studio and settled on Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello, and Raphael. Using a combination of income tax returns, a few $100s in savings, and a generous loan of $1,000 from Kevin's uncle, the first issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was published in black and white in May of 1984. And so they sat. 3,000 books, in the living room, stacks of them. They had the books, they had creative control, and they had stacks and stacks of books. They had just enough money left over from printing the books that they took out an ad in Comics Buyer's Guide, hoping they could sell some books via mail order. They sold just enough to attract the attention of some distributors, and within a few weeks they had sold through the entire first run of 3,000 copies. They paid back Kevin's uncle, they did a second print run of 6,000 copies, which also sold out. After a few months hiatus, issue 2 was completed and they were able to make it available through direct distribution on the strength of the first issue's performance. Issue 2 sold 15,000 copies and convinced Eastman and Laird that this was actually something they could do full-time. Making their own comics, publishing them through their own imprint, having full creative control, and making enough money was a genuine reality. They did a third printing of 30,000 copies of issue 1 and followed that up with another printing of issue 2 that moved even more copies than that. Every book they published pushed the numbers higher and faster. Within 3 years, they had produced 9 total issues with increasing production numbers issue over issue. Issue 8, a crossover with Dave Sims' character Cerebus, another indie publishing success story, sold 135,000 copies. To put that number in perspective, in March of 2018, Amazing Spider-Man issue 797 sold approximately 128,000 copies. That's Marvel. That's Spider-Man in 2018.
I like turtles.
To move 135,000 copies of issue 8 on an independent, self-published, black and white comic book in 1986 or 2018 is absolutely unheard of. The Ninja Turtles phenomenon had already begun to take on a life of its own. They started licensing the Turtles out for products beyond their own comics, including a role-playing game from Palladium Books. But the big deal came when they were approached by Mark Friedman. Mark was a big-time Hollywood agent, just like all the other big-time Hollywood agents that Eastman and Laird had already said no to. Everyone came to them promising them the moon, but the duo were extremely protective of their property after having seen other industry professionals get taken advantage of. This time, they gave Mark a chance, but on their terms. They signed a 30-day non-exclusive agreement. Mark had 30 days to see if he could turn up some real interest and get them a good deal that worked for them. Mark connected them with Playmates Toys, who flew them out to California for a meeting that would represent a quantum leap in exposure and profitability for the brand. But as interested as Playmates was in making Ninja Turtle toys, they balked at the idea of selling toys on the strength of the comics alone. And they were going to need to make some cosmetic changes to the Turtles to be able to hit the 4-year-old to 8-year-old market they were targeting. Less violence, no alcohol, less grim and gritty, more pizza, and somehow make it even easier to tell the 4 Turtles apart. A 5-episode miniseries went into production and began showing on televisions across the country in December of 1987. The basic concepts of the Turtles' origin were still there, but heavily softened. Where they previously all wore red masks, each turtle had been assigned their own color and initials were added to their belt buckles. Viewer demand resulted in 13 new episodes beginning in October of 1988, with the action figure line hitting store shelves in advance of the 1988 Christmas and pizza retail season. Playmates would go on to sell, hang on, I have the number. The number really isn't important. They sold a lot of figures. They made a lot of money.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, heroes in a half shell.
Splinter the Rat taught them each the ninja arts. Donatello, master of the staff.
War!
Leonardo, the katana blade.
My God!
Raphael, the
Don't
sleeve.
throw this at home, kids!
And Michelangelo, the nunchakus.
Radical!
And master of the willing pizza.
Hey, who had the pepperoni and ice cream?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
From Playmates.
With that kind of success comes the need for lots and lots of lawyers. Eastman and Laird found themselves in the position of employing all the lawyers to fight back every conceivable kind of attack on their brand. Random people claiming they had created the Turtles years before, and Eastman and Laird stole their ideas. People making unlicensed products, and even people buying up the rights internationally before Eastman and Laird could, and then extorting the license back to them in order to avoid further legal costs, trying to prove that it was actually their license to begin with. In 1990, with a budget of $13.5 million, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live-action feature-length movie hit theaters. It pulled inspiration from both the lighter-toned cartoon and the comics, which had continued on in their own continuity. Despite poor reviews, it was a box office success, bringing in $202 million worldwide, and it temporarily took the Turtles down a weird path of musical performance tours and videos in 1990, but the less we talk about that, the better.
We are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles!
The movie was followed by a sequel immediately 1 year later, and then a third movie in 1993. The returns had begun to diminish quickly. The market was reaching a point of turtle saturation. The cartoon finally came to a stop after its 10th season in 1996. However, in 1997, in association with Saban Entertainment, the Power Rangers people, a live-action TV show technically within the same continuity as the movie universe called Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation debuted. Next Mutation expanded the Turtle roster to include their sister, Venus de Milo. It only lasted 1 season, but they did have a crossover with Power Rangers in Space, and that's some pop culture wish fulfillment right there that deserves at least a little recognition. In 2000, Kevin Eastman, looking to pursue other creative ventures, sold his ownership rights of the Turtles to Peter Laird and Mirage Studios. He had never imagined that the Turtles could have taken him as far as it did, and certainly had not imagined that he would be spending his entire life working on it exclusively. In 2003, a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series rebooted the franchise, a bit darker in tone than the 80s and 90s version. It ran 6 seasons through 2009, culminating in a feature-length TV movie called Turtles Forever, which just happened to coincide with the 25th anniversary of the franchise. In 2007, the 4th Turtles feature film, simply titled TMNT, was released. It was a departure from the live-action films of the 90s, but still tapped into the turtle-loving moviegoers to the tune of $95 million worldwide. In 2009, Peter Laird and Mirage Studios officially sold all Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles rights domestic and international, to Viacom, who just so happened to own Nickelodeon, and all of that is owned by CBS. 2012 would see the third animated series called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles broadcast from its new home at Nickelodeon. It ran for 5 seasons with a total of 124 episodes through 2017, winning several Emmys, churning out its own line of action figures, just like the 2 series before it. And in 2014, there was another movie. It was a reboot, relaunch of the franchise brought to you by the guy who had already turned the Transformers into a money-making machine. That's an alt mode joke. It had a pretty hefty $125 million budget, but it brought in $500 million worldwide. Part real actors, part CGI. Whether fans love it or hate it, you got a movie that makes $500 million, you make another one, Michael Bay or not. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows was released in 2016 and only made $250 million. So, I don't know. I guess that's good. I guess. And just this year in 2018, Nickelodeon announced a complete reboot of the entire franchise. New logo, new look, new tone, a new direction for a franchise that has been reinvented every few years, as must happen for a pop culture brand like this to survive for over 3 decades and into the future. What started out as a single drawing done as a joke between 2 friends evolved into a billion-dollar global industry that has flourished for over 30 years. It is a pillar of modern global pop culture entertainment, part of a pantheon of properties transcending generations, with as bright a future ahead of it as the historic path that came before. It is the cinematic time anchor for an entire generation. You know where and when you saw it, what you had to eat for lunch that day, and how many things you ninja kicked in the lobby afterward. It is responsible for helping jumpstart a silver age of comic book movie adaptations and super boosting what was already one of the most popular franchises around the world. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a feature film released in 1990, adapted from the comic book series that began in 1984, the cartoon that began in 1987, and the toy line that began in 1988. Many fans believe that it is still the peak of live-action Ninja Turtle representation to this day. The crime wave is high, with muggings mysterious. All police and detectives are furious because they can't find the source of this lethally evil force. And I can't do the whole thing, it's too rhymey, and I need to be more concise with this plot description. Investigative journalist April O'Neil is on the story, attempting to figure out what's going on, not only with the coordinated assault on private property, but the strange new team of heroes that saved her when she got a little too close to exposing the criminals. Turns out the kids of the city are being indoctrinated into a crime cult called the Foot Clan. Tempted with video games, candy, comic books, and negotiable bedtimes, kids of all ages have become willing participants in the expanding influence of a ruthless villain called the Shredder. As April works to expose the Foot Clan and Shredder, she finds herself becoming a part of the story. After the Foot Clan attempts to silence her, she meets the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and their teacher/father, Master Splinter. She learns about their incredible accidental creation by mutagenic Ooze, their mastery of ninjutsu, their affinity for pizza, and how they were named after Renaissance artists Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo. The Ninja Turtles, along with vigilante Casey Jones, April, and Splinter, will put their lives on the line to expose Shredder and the Foot, settle old debts, and figure out how to live as otherwise normal teenagers in a world that at least partially now knows they exist, which is potentially more dangerous to their family than anything else. In 1984, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird created and published the first issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles through their own company, Mirage Comics. Just a few years later, it was one of the hottest independent comics on the market, if you could actually find one to purchase. In 1987, Playmates Toys licensed the Turtles for a line of action figures and began developing an animated series to promote it. By 1988, the world was overcome by an incurable case of turtle madness. Comics, toys, cartoons, the Ninja Turtles were a pop culture sensation, with licensed merchandise covering the spectrum. Thanks in no small part to Eastman and Laird's agent and business partner, Mark Friedman, from toothpaste to fanny packs and everything in between. But a franchise like that can't sustain forever without regular boosts to keep it fresh and exciting. The next step towards immortality, to achieving mainstream relevance, was a live-action feature film, because nothing legitimizes a comic book, cartoon, or toy line like adapting it to live action. Live-action movies are the height of 20th century artistic expression in the US. Animation is for kids. Comics are for kids. Movies is where the adults gets art. But the landscape for comic book movie adaptations in the late 80s was a treacherous one. Superman set a high bar in 1978, but Superman 2 in 1980, Superman 3 in 1983, and Superman 4 in 1987 brought that bar down with each release. Howard the Duck piled on in 1986, and Masters of the Universe all but nuked it in 1987. Every kid's product that might be looked at for potential live-action adaptation was treated like 1987's Garbage Pail Kids movie, a dumpster fire in a fart storm. Legend has it that one of the earliest pitches for a Ninja Turtles movie came from prolific filmmaker Roger Corman himself. While it is not implausible that he wanted to take a shot at it, the idea that it would have realistically featured Sam Kinison, Bobcat Goldthwait, Gallagher, and Billy Crystal painted green and wearing turtle shells is implausible. The reality is that Gary Proper, who, yes, was a manager and producer for Gallagher, knew about the comics and wanted to make a live-action film. Together with Kim Dawson, another of Gallagher's producers at the time, they acquired the live-action movie rights. In theory, Proper imagined, you could make a movie with actors in suits and have people like Gallagher and Sam Kinison dub over the voices. You didn't actually need those guys on set for days at a time just to sell it at the end. Proper and Dawson recruited Dawson's co-worker Bobby Herbeck, a comedian, actor, and television writer on shows like Different Strokes and The Jeffersons. Herbeck put together a first draft, then began shopping it around to studios. As if anyone needed to hear anything past a movie about the hottest kids property on the planet. But that was it. Nobody wanted to make a movie about the hottest kids property on the planet, thanks to the track record of the last decade. Thanks, He-Man. Thanks, Howard Duck. Thanks, Clark Superman. At the time, Bobby Herbeck was working on a project for Golden Harvest Company, a production studio in China that made a bunch of movies starring Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, and Jackie Chan, not at the same time, as well as the 1981 hit starring Burt Reynolds, Farrah Fawcett, and Dom DeLuise, Is It Cannonball Run? Well, yes, obviously. The LA-based head of production for Golden Harvest, Tom Gray, had previously hired Bobby Herbeck to work on an American version of the popular British show Are You Being Served? Herbeck thought that Golden Harvest would be perfect for a live-action Ninja Turtles movie and made sure that Gray was reminded of this constantly. Gray didn't really get it until Herbeck told him to ask his 10 and 12-year-old kids if they had any thoughts about the Ninja Turtles. Their enthusiastic response was more than enough to convince Gray that he should at least take the meeting. Over lunch with Herbeck and Dawson, Gray realized that this was exactly the kind of project Golden Harvest could pull off. It's just 4 stunt guys in rubber suits doing ninja moves, the kind of thing that Golden Harvest was uniquely positioned to not only do, but do it wicked cheap. In June of 1988, just 2 months after Tim Burton went into pre-production on Batman, Gray got the green light from Raymond Chow, the owner of Golden Harvest, as well as a budget of $3 million. Herbeck took his script to Eastman and Laird in Northampton, Massachusetts to get a quick sign-off, and then they could start casting, developing the suits, locking down locations. Nearly 2 months later, Herbeck emerged with a version of the script that both Eastman and Laird felt was good enough, authentic enough to go forward with. Meanwhile, a director working on a film for Golden Harvest heard about the Ninja Turtles project and recommended Steve Barron as a director for it. Barron had made a name for himself directing music videos. Michael Jackson's Billie Jean, a-ha's Take On Me, Dire Straits' Money for Nothing, and a video for Supertramp, Is It Cannonball? It was. Barron was interested but didn't want to make a regular old kung fu movie, and he certainly didn't want to make a regular old comic book movie. He wanted to make an authentic Ninja Turtles movie, grounded, real, but not as bloody and violent as the comics, true to the spirit of the comics, something tonally like Ghostbusters. Barron convinced Eastman and Laird that he was the right guy to direct their movie by taking their comics to them and saying essentially, look, this right here, this is the movie, pointing to specific scenes in the comics that he wanted to use. Eastman and Laird loved it, despite the fact that it contradicted the script that they had already agreed to with Bobby Herbeck. The only option was to replace Bobby Herbeck as the writer. Todd Langen, another writer with a comedic television background who had worked on The Wonder Years, was tasked with reconciling the new approach to the script. In order to make the kind of movie he wanted to make, Barron knew he was going to need the best puppeteers in the business, because the suits the actors were going to wear as the Ninja Turtles were going to need more range than just ninja kicking and ninja punching. They were going to need ninja emoting. The Ninja Turtles needed to be relatable to be real. They needed to have believable expressions, to be able to communicate emotion without speaking, but they also needed to look good speaking. Along with his portfolio of music videos, Barron had directed episodes of Jim Henson's The Storyteller, which showcased the Henson Company's fantastic storytelling, but also allowed them to push the envelope of practical visual effects, namely characters that were puppets or human puppet hybrids. Barron met with Jim Henson and reassured him that despite what was in the original comics, the movie wasn't going to be all about violence and bloodshed. That he, Barron, was going to make it about the heart and soul, the love of this very strange family and their place in the world. Once Henson was convinced that it wouldn't damage the legacy of his name or the Creature Shop, he got excited about the technical challenge, the potential to develop new technologies and never-before-seen visual effects, to bring these characters to life.
Ninja Turtles, get ready! It's an attack! A snack attack! A crunchy snack attack! It's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pizza crunch bunga! Snack attack! A snack attack, Jack! Going to pieces over crunchy little pizzas! A snack attack! Pizza crunch bunga snacks! Sounds like a crunchy snack attack, dude! I take on any ninja who takes my crunchy food! Pizza crunch bunga! Want some? Got some! Awesome! Crunchy bungas!
Barron and crew were going to need more money. The $3 million they had was about what it was going to cost just for Henson to do the suits. On top of that, just a few weeks before they were supposed to start shooting, the distribution deal they had was canceled when Barry Diller replaced Leonard Goldberg as CEO of 20th Century Fox. The production scrambled. The $3 million budget had become $6 became $8. It would eventually settle in around $13 million. They managed to pull in New Line Cinema, more money from Golden Harvest, and whatever else they could find laying around to get the cameras rolling. Some of the shooting would take place in actual New York City, but North Carolina was going to have to be a substitute for most of it, if for no other reason than it was cheap. North Carolina, the state, was in possession of the De Laurentiis studio after they went bankrupt. The state wanted to get any production in there as soon as possible. The Ninja Turtles were the stars of the film, and they were going to be played by suit actors and stunt people. The feature human roles would go to actors that were right for the roles and, more importantly, right for the budget. April O'Neil was played by Judith Hoag, who had appeared in movies and television, shows like Spencer for Hire and the ABC soap opera Loving. Elias Koteas played Casey Jones, James Saito as Shredder, Toshishiro Obata as Shredder's Lieutenant Tatsu, Michael Turney as Danny Dan Pennington, Jay Patterson as his father Charles Pennington, and a fresh-faced Sam Rockwell as Head Thug. Josh Pais, David Foreman, Leif Tilden, and Michelin Sisti took on the physically challenging turtle suits, as well as the mental and emotional stress that came with them. 70 pounds of plastic, foam rubber, and electronics compounded by the suffocating restriction of air, the lack of ventilation, and the constant feeling of claustrophobia. According to Jim Henson, the hero suits, with animatronics and batteries stored in the shells designed to operate wirelessly, were the most advanced creature designs they had ever developed. A second set of stunt suits were far less complex for use in the fighting and action scenes. It took 18 weeks to bring the suits from concept to shooting model. Each of the suit actors spoke their dialogue for their characters during shooting, carefully choreographed with the puppeteers operating the animatronic facial expressions. Finding out later that only one of them, Josh Pais as Raphael, would actually have their dialogue make it into the final film. Ultimately, Brian Tochi would voice Leonardo, Robbie Rist would voice Michelangelo, and Corey Feldman took on the role of Donatello. Splinter's puppeteer Kevin Clash also provided Splinter's voice. Money was a problem from day one, and it never got easier. But that's the movie business. Sometimes the most successful projects are simply the ones that can navigate the budget the best, make the proper sacrifices in the right places at the right time. Steve Barron was making a film that looked and felt the way he wanted it. Golden Harvest wanted him to lighten it up, add some color. It's a kids' movie, they said. He refused. He knew what he wanted the final product to look like. But with another dozen pages of script left, they were out of money. Barron handed off the film to editor Sally Menke to see what she could do with the pieces they had. She was able to put together a compelling film that Barron was proud of, but didn't feel was complete. After speaking with Jim Henson, director Steve Barron and producer Simon Fields were able to get a secret meeting with Jeffrey Katzenberg, the CEO of Walt Disney, in the hopes of securing nearly $1 million to fund one last week of shooting. It was a secret meeting because New Line Cinema and Golden Harvest would never, ever have approved a meeting with Disney this late in the game, so Barron and Fields didn't tell them about it. Katzenberg liked it. He didn't like it, but he thought it had potential. He suggested another couple of weeks of editing, come back and try again. When Barron brought it back, Katzenberg said that he did like it, but still didn't write them a check. Instead, the next day, Katzenberg called Tom Gray, the head of production for Golden Harvest, who was unaware that the meeting with Katzenberg had even occurred, to say that Disney would love to release the movie if they wanted to make a deal. Gray thanked him for the offer and, in no uncertain terms, said, "I think we're going to stick with New Line Cinema. Thank you, goodbye." And then both Steve Barron and Simon Fields were kicked off the production. Editor Sally Menke left as well in a show of solidarity with Barron and Fields. Golden Harvest recut the film for final release, and the rest, as they say, is history. Oh, that's this! The anticipation for the Turtles movie was through the roof and around the block. Kids were beyond hyped to see their heroes in real life on the big screen. Early buzz prompted producers to double the amount of prints they had ordered to expand the number of theaters it would run in. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles opened on March 30th, 1990, a mere 9 months after Tim Burton's Batman starring Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton changed the game with respect to the potential for live-action movies based on comics, cartoons, action figures, all of it. Many people have believed for a long time that the Ninja Turtles movie was a reaction to the success of Batman, but that's not the case. The two films were in production at the same time and cooperatively helped fast-track any other comics properties that might have been in consideration by other studios because Batman and the Turtles were making a lot of money. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. They were making a lot of money! Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was the #1 movie at the box office over the weekend, raking in more than $25 million, breaking the record for the biggest opening weekend for an independent film ever. It did $135 million in North America, over $66 million everywhere else, for a total of over $200 million against a budget of $13 million. It was the highest grossing independent film at the time overall as well. Reviews were mixed, with Roger Ebert giving the film 2.5 out of 4 stars, calling it nowhere near as bad as it might have been, and probably is the best possible Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie. It supplies, in other words, more or less what Turtle fans will expect. New Line Cinema made the brilliant decision to schedule the opening for the weekend before school breaks in the US, which meant that kids hit it multiple times over the course of the week, resulting in a drop of only 25% the following weekend, an achievement in itself. The movie was an amalgamation of things taken from different popular versions of the Ninja Turtles across media. The core of the story came from the comics. The characterizations, the different colored masks, the cowabunga, and the love of pizza came from the cartoon. All were integral elements to the brand by the time the movie came out, and it was not a surprise to see Domino's Pizza featured prominently in the film. Consequently, it was Pizza Hut, not Domino's, that spent $20 million on a promotional campaign across print, radio, and television. The Ninja Turtles already had their faces plastered on every possible item of licensed merchandise you could imagine before the movie came out. That selection increased with the incredible success at the box office. Shirts, shoes, socks, party supplies, posters, costumes, backpacks, school supplies, cereals, stickers, books, hats, lunchboxes, everything. Toys were a big deal before the film. They were a big deal during and after the film. However, Playmates' movie Turtles left something to be desired, in that there was a desire for action figures from Playmates based on the turtle designs from the movies. According to Ninja Turtles co-creator Kevin Eastman, executives from Playmates Toys that got an early screening of the film thought it was terrible, literally the worst movie they had ever seen, and were afraid it was actually going to kill the toy line. Playmates would eventually begrudgingly deliver movie-inspired figures with their movie star Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but not until 1992 with the release of the first sequel, The Secret of the Ooze. And even then, the Turtles looked like the regular Playmates action figures, but with real rubbery reptilian feel. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was released on VHS through Family Home Entertainment in October of 1990. It hit DVD for the first time in September of 2002. In 2009, it was released again on DVD and for the first time on Blu-ray in the 25th anniversary of the comic book special edition box set. As of this video, it's available to stream on Netflix and HBO Max. The success of the film meant that a sequel was likely, but before that happened, in October of 1990, the Turtles went on the road with a live-action concert tour, the Coming Out of Their Shells tour. It's a whole thing in and of itself that we aren't going to get into right now. What we will say here is that the technology pioneered for the suits in the films and the resultant boiling over of the franchise gave birth to all that. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze opened in the US just 1 year after the first film in March of 1991, bringing home $78 million against a budget of $25 million. Familiar but different, a few faces from the first film were missing. Judith Hoag, who took issue with the amount of violence in the first film, thought that the movie suffered because of it. And she spoke to the producers about it. And they disagreed about that and a lot of other stuff. And April was recast with Paige Turco for Secret of the Ooze. A third film followed 2 years after that in March of 1993 with predictable diminished returns, making only $54 million on a budget of $21 million. 3 years later in 1996, the original animated series ended. The next year, in 1997, the Ninja Turtles showed up in a live-action series using simplified versions of the movie suits and a fifth turtle named Venus de Milo, prompting everyone to take a step back for a bit and let this whole Ninja Turtles thing cool down. There have been multiple comics and cartoon series based on the franchise since then, thousands of action figures, a new fully CG animated feature film in 2007, and a new live-action movie franchise kicked off in 2014 starring Megan Fox as April O'Neil, Will Arnett as Vern Fenwick, and Tony Shalhoub as Splinter. In 2016, Playmates revisited the 90s movie franchise for a set of deluxe action figures using the molds from their classics collection. While certainly more screen accurate than their previous releases in 1992, they fell short of fans' expectations. Those dreams finally came true in 2017 when NECA Toys released 18-inch quarter-scale versions of the Turtles as they appeared in the 1990 movie, highly detailed, incredibly accurate representations with articulation and their weapons. A year later, they offered scaled-down 7-inch versions of those same designs as a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive set that came packaged in a box that looked like the original VHS tapes from 1990. They would later be offered at regular retail. The figures are so good, my ideal Turtles, that they prompted me to stop collecting Turtles altogether because, for me, nothing could possibly top them. In November of 2020, Slash Film reported that the original writer of the 1990 Ninja Turtles movie, Bobby Herbeck, was having conversations with original director Steve Barron and Jim Henson's son Brian about potentially producing a new live-action movie set in the same universe as the 3 previous films. On the 30th anniversary of the original 1990 film, drowning in a movie market that is dominated by reboots, sequels, and adaptations of comic book superheroes, it makes sense. On top of that, in August of 2021, Deadline reported that Colin and Casey Jost are writing a new live-action movie for Paramount Pictures to be produced by Michael Bay, Scott Mednick, Andrew Form, Brad Fuller, and Galen Walker. While it's not impossible that the original live-action universe could continue, it is highly unlikely. Batman and the Ninja Turtles' success and their sequels sparked a new wave of comic book, toy, and cartoon adaptations. Captain America and Dick Tracy in 1990, The Rocketeer in 91, Super Mario Bros. In 93, The Shadow and the Crow in 94, Judge Dredd and Tank Girl in 95, The Phantom in 96, some more successful than others, none as successful as Batman or the Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was the last film Jim Henson worked on before his death. He passed away in May of 1990. Any concerns he had about the project damaging the Creature Shop or the Henson name were thankfully unfounded. The movie is beloved by the fans that grew up with it. The visual effects created by Henson and his Creature Shop deserving all the credit possible for allowing kids to get lost in the world of the Turtles and for 93 minutes believe that they are real. The seemingly impossible task helped legitimize the entire genre, if even for a short time, in the face of previous failures and the stigma associated with comics-based content to begin with, not to mention the inherent silliness of the specific title itself. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles worked because the presentation was believable. It worked because it was radical. Breaking the boundaries of film, television, and comics to cross over into our world, rock and roll heroes with less than a half shell. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming out of their shells. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Coming Out of Their Shells was a live-action musical stage show sponsored by Pizza Hut that toured the US from 1990 to 1991. It was inspired by the Ninja Turtle cartoon, toys, and comics, bolstered by the success of the 1990 movie, and sold over 3 million records in the process. Coming Out of Their Shells refers to the Ninja Turtles' desire to get out and meet their fans in our world, the real world, and let them see the real Turtles, to find out who they are when they aren't ninja-kicking foot soldiers or battling Shredder across dimensions. Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo are taking the advice of their teacher and surrogate father, Master Splinter, that music can let you accomplish more than all the weapons in the world. To that end, the Turtles have written a full album's worth of songs that spell out in great detail their feelings on subjects like meditation, sewer surfing, self-improvement, positive thinking, expressing your emotions, and the power of pizza power. They're on a national tour to share their message with their fans, leaving behind the familiar sights and smells of the New York City sewer system, their homes, and everything but the clothes on their backs. And that includes their turtle shells. Somehow. But the evil Shredder and his evil ninjas, the Foot Clan, are determined to interrupt every single show with a plan to not only stop the Turtles from performing their music, but to stop all music throughout the world because Shredder hates music. Along with Baxter Stockman, he's developed the D-harmonic convergence converter that steals all the music from the world, and it's up to the Turtles, with the help of audiences across the country, to defeat Shredder and bring the music back. Created in 1984 by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles broke out in 1987 with a daily syndicated cartoon, an action figure line, and nearly every kind of licensed merchandise imaginable. By 1989, they were a global pop culture phenomenon with a live-action feature film in production. Meanwhile, Bob Bejan and Godfrey Nelson were looking for new opportunities to collaborate. Bejan was a singer and dancer who had performed in shows like Grease and West Side Story. Nelson was a musician and composer. As Bejan told the story in a 2020 article on GameSpot.com, he wanted to do more than just be in shows. He wanted to make his own shows, saying, quote, "I wanted to be more than a dancer and just a performer, and I always thought I had an aspiration for a bigger creative vision. I wrote a musical, and I had this very strong point of view that popular music was something that Broadway needed." While his 1987 original production, Strides, didn't reinvent Broadway, it did connect him with Nelson. In 1989, after 2 years of work for hire, they started kicking around ideas for another original production. Bejan was familiar with the Ninja Turtles, having read the first collection of original comics, and they agreed that it might be something they could adapt. It didn't take long before they had written a handful of songs and looked into acquiring the rights. Producing a show about a popular kids' cartoon wasn't a totally original idea. Sesame Street Live had been touring since 1980. Alvin and the Chipmunks toured in 1984 and 85. He-Man and She-Ra hit the road together in 1986. Thundercats, Silverhawks, Street Frogs, Karate Cat, and Gumby combined their powers for Thundercats Live in 1987. In January of 1990, Bejan and Nelson reached out to Eastman and Laird, whom they had never met before. They pitched their idea, played them their songs, and got Eastman and Laird's blessing to proceed. All that was left was to cover the nominal $50,000 licensing fee, which Bejan and Nelson could not afford. Unwilling to give up, Bejan and Nelson reached out to Steve Lieber, a well-known producer whom they had never met before, to pitch their idea. Lieber agreed to partner with them on the production and gave them the $50,000 to cover the licensing fee. As Bejan said in that same GameSpot interview, quote, "We signed the licensing rights and got the rights to all live touring, music, video exploitation, merchandising. It was unbelievable." In March of 1990, the Ninja Turtles live-action movie opened to great success and ratcheted Turtle Mania up another level. What was big before was bigger still. There was seemingly no limit to the heights that the Turtles could reach. Bejan and Nelson were further emboldened to produce their show. They recognized how much leverage they had and turned to the pizza providers of America for a corporate partner. Little Caesars and Domino's didn't share their vision, but Pizza Hut bought 3 million copies at $3 each of their as-yet unproduced Ninja Turtles record. That meant that before all the songs were even written, before the actors were cast, before they had a single tour date scheduled, their record was triple platinum. They had $9 million in the bank and a commitment from Pizza Hut to spend an additional $20 million on marketing.
On stage for the first time, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles! It's not the movie soundtrack, dudes. This is rock and roll. Now get your kids their hot new audio cassette and concert tour book for $3.99, only at Pizza Hut. Why Pizza Hut?
Because they don't sell pizza in record stores, dude. Pizza Hut, making it great.
Like the Muppets and Alf before them, Bejan and Nelson wanted to maintain the illusion that the Turtles were real. The singers who actually recorded the songs were credited as the Turtles' vocal coaches, and the writers were listed as Michelangelo, Raphael, Bob Bejan, Godfrey Nelson, and Keith Forsey. Tracks on the record included songs performed by the Turtles like Coming Out of Our Shells, Count on Us, and Sing About It, Skipping Stones by Master Splinter, and even Shredder's I Hate Music. While sets were being built and costumes designed, they set a premiere in August at Radio City Music Hall and started a media tour to promote the show, which eventually included a high-profile appearance on The Oprah Winfrey Show in November of 1990. While it was mostly mundane and allowed the Turtles to perform multiple songs from the show, it is now infamous thanks to Oprah asking the questions everyone else was afraid to ask.
Is there one of the Turtles you like more than the others? I mean, like, is there anything, like, romantic or anything?
Oprah, I've been trying to talk her into an interspecies relationships for months now.
Whoa, Raph, chill, man.
And she won't do it,
She
huh?
can't hold her breath.
No, she can't do it.
The biggest problem is she can't hold her breath long enough, you know?
One of the questions that Bejan and Nelson anticipated getting from audiences was, if the Ninja Turtles are indeed turtles, then where are their shells? Not just a clever name for the show itself, Coming Out of Their Shells referred to the fact that the costumes didn't have shells. During rehearsals, the brutal reality of performing a 2-hour concert in a full-body polyurethane turtle costume decked out with animatronics became clear. The actors couldn't survive the sweltering heat inside the suits, and a redesign was their only option. Initially, they intended the suit design to look more like the suits that were featured in the live-action movie, but were forced to make accommodations for the humans inside. To that end, the shells were removed, and in their place were even more rockstar stylings, additional glitter, armbands, and denim vests with shell patches on the back. Coming Out of Their Shells was written by Bob Bejan, directed by Thomas White, produced by Bejan, Nelson Lieber White, and Adrian Selby. Bejan himself was the singing voice for vocal coach. Nelson coached Master Splinter. All of the singing and dialogue was pre-recorded and synced with the animatronics in the costume heads. Everything was choreographed, including pauses that allowed for audience members to respond when the Turtles asked a pre-recorded question, all in the service of maintaining the illusion of reality. The tour officially kicked off in September of 1990 at Radio City Music Hall in New York City with a debut performance that was simulcast on pay-per-view cable stations. That performance ended with a list of tour dates where the Turtles would be traveling over the next year. Additional dates were added, as were appearances on Live with Regis and Kathy Lee and Larry King Live. 1991 saw the addition of international performances including Mexico, France, Sweden, and Argentina. In March, a second live-action Ninja Turtles movie, The Secret of the Ooze, was released, delivering a new jolt of turtle power for the tour. In May, a second company began touring Six Flags amusement parks. In September, the final U.S. performance took place at the Saratoga Performing Arts Center in Saratoga Springs, New York. If you weren't around to catch the tour live back in the 90s, or you want to relive the experience to convince yourself that it actually happened, the Radio City Music Hall debut performance was released on VHS in 1990, as well as a 30-minute making-of video that showed the Turtles writing songs and working on the show that reinforced the idea that the Turtles are real. As of this video, neither have been officially released on DVD or Blu-ray. That said, you can easily find both here on YouTube. Saratoga Springs was the end of the first tour, but not the end of live-action Ninja Turtle performances. A new show called Gettin' Down in Your Town kicked off in 1992, a heavily scaled-down version of the previous show with new songs, fewer dates, less performers, and a simpler set. Once again produced by Steve Lieber and Bob Bejan, new songs included the title track Gettin' Down in Your Town, Pizza USA, and We Stick Together. Sing About It returns from the Coming Out of Their Shells record despite the fact that it wasn't actually performed in the first live tour. Written by Bejan and director Tom White, the new show replaced April O'Neil with fan favorite Casey Jones. Despite his defeat in the first tour, Shredder returned after tricking the Turtles into releasing him from interdimensional infinity. Casey is barely on model, even for a character like Casey Jones, just a skinny guy in a tank top and jeans, sporting a generic goalie mask that he never removes instead of his signature skull mask from the comics, cartoons, toys, and movies. Other than in-stadium merchandise like novelty nunchucks, light-up katanas, and Ninja Turtle masks, very little product was actually released tied to either tour. Between the merchandise that was already on the market and Pizza Hut's own promotions, it was more practical to capitalize on sales to ticket buyers. But the children of yesterday are the adult action figure collectors of today, and nostalgia drives everything, including nostalgia for things that have previously been derided as bad, or silly, or campy, or childish, or awful, or in 2020, NECA Toys shocked the world with a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive 4-pack featuring the Turtles in their Coming Out of Their Shells costumes, all 4 7-inch scale Turtles with their signature outfits, instruments, and headsets. As of this video, no word on April, Splinter, Shredder, or barely on model Casey Jones. We live here in the future, so I don't have to tell you that the Ninja Turtles franchise survived the live tour, regardless what anyone writes about it in their snarky retrospectives or YouTube primers. Reviews in 2024 don't affect box office sales in 1990. The Gettin' Down in Your Town tour ended in 1993, the same year Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 was released. The animated series lasted for 3 more years, ending in 1996. The Turtles returned to television and live action one more time for a single season of Next Mutation, produced by Saban Entertainment, featuring a crossover with the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Eastman sold his half of the brand to Laird in 2000, which set up a new animated series in 2003, followed by a CG animated film in 2007. In 2009, Laird sold the franchise to Viacom, who gave it to Nickelodeon for 5 seasons of another new animated series from 2012 to 2017. They returned to live action with Michael Bay's 2014 and 2016 films, another reboot in 2018 with Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and most recently a substantial reboot in 2023 as they once again made their way to theaters in an animated feature called Mutant Mayhem. The exceptional performance of that film once again reset the brand for a new generation, and word on the internet is that Michael Bay is currently developing a live-action reboot as well. Perhaps this time they won't ignore the formative chapter that saw them travel the globe, singing and dancing as they delivered the message that music is stronger than any weapon, especially when amplified with pizza power. It was the best of Turtles, it was the worst of Turtles. It was the age of TURTLE power, it was the age of ninja rap. It was the epic of mutants, it was the epic of heroes. It was the spring of Cowabunga, it was the winter of Bummer Dude. We had everything before us, we had nothing before us. In short, the period was so far like the present period that some of its noisiest authorities insisted on its being received for good or for evil in the superlative degree of comparison only. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze is the 1991 feature film sequel to 1990's box office success, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. With a release date less than 1 year from the release date of the first film, it is a textbook example of why so many sequels pale in comparison to the films they were inspired by. Rushed, compromised, and everyone blaming everyone else for the disappointing results. Picking up where the previous film left off, the four Turtles, Splinter and April O'Neil, return once again to face off against the forces of the Foot Clan, which is surprising considering everyone assumed Shredder was dead at the end of the previous film and that the Foot Clan was no more. This time, Shredder has the secret of the ooze on his side thanks to the kidnapped Professor Perry of TGRI, the lab where the mutagenic ooze was developed 15 years ago. They used the ooze to create two monstrosities, a mutated snapping turtle named Toka and a wolf named Razar. The Turtles will have to dig deep inside themselves to find the strength to overcome their own personal demons and once again defeat Shredder, his monsters, and the Foot, because in this life, there's only one winner, and you better aim straight so you can hit the center. In it to win it with a team of 4 Ninja Turtles that you gotta adore. We have previously covered the 1990 film Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well as the overall franchise itself. Check out those videos if you want some more detail leading into this video. The quick version is that the original movie called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was released in 1990, which was based on the comics that began in 1984, the cartoon that began in 1987, and the toy line that began in 1988. Riding a nigh unprecedented wave of popularity for a pop culture brand, it made over $200 million worldwide against a budget of just over $13 million and reinforced the Ninja Turtles' position as one of the hottest, most influential, and most lucrative brands in American pop culture. And that caused problems because the target customer was between the ages of 3 and 10 years old. Some people were concerned about the negative influence the Turtles were having on some kids. And as someone who was working as a movie theater usher when this movie was released, I can tell you that those concerns were justified. Teachers, childcare providers, parents, movie theater ushers all raised concerns about the degree to which kids, especially after the release of the first movie, were not only looking to the Turtles as role models, but mimicking their ninja behaviors on other kids, furniture, and movie theater ushers.
They don't provide turtle toys at childcare centers like Children's World, but talk to the kids and you'd never know it.
Turtle power, they fight with the bad guy.
Marketers saw the potential, toned the Turtles down for a younger crowd. So they sell cookies and cereal, draw kids into Burger King. It worries some parents.
There's a lot of violence, which doesn't seem to connect very often with much of a plot.
Others countered these concerns by suggesting that parents tell kids to stop ninja kicking everything, settle down in public, don't throw ninja stars at the dog, be a parent instead of making a bunch of rules so other people have to do it for you. Concerns about kids' behavior were being heard not only by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, the creators of the Ninja Turtles, but by the movie studio, the cartoon producers, the toy company Playmates, and government agencies around the world. The British Board of Film Classification, the UK government itself ordered that Michelangelo no longer use nunchucks, and that the word ninja be replaced with the word hero. Steve Barron, who directed the first movie, said the censorship was, quote, really disappointing. It was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles everywhere as a brand, but in the UK, it was Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. It was a real compromise. I thought it was completely unnecessary and frustrating. Standard release time between sequels in the 70s and through the 80s was usually around 3 years. 2 if a production really wanted to push it. The degree to which a production can shorten that release window is based on several factors. Budget, availability of the cast and locations, the complexity of the visual effects, but most importantly, customer excitement for the franchise. Turtles were hotter than hot coming out of the release of the first film, but there was no way to know how much longer that heat was going to burn. Fortunately, New Line Cinema had experience with quick sequel turnaround. They were about to release their 6th Nightmare on Elm Street movie in 7 years. The first thing they were going to have to address was the tone of the film. Despite the realism and violence of the first one, that wasn't going to work with the franchise going forward. They needed to hew closer to the cartoon than the original black and white comics because that's where the largest audience was. And that, theoretically, is where the most money was to be made. 3 of the 4 turtles were no longer going to be able to use their signature weapons to actually hit bad guys. In fact, they were rarely going to use them as anything other than costume decorations. Donatello could use his bow staff, but at no point would Leonardo be able to go slashing through crowds of foot ninjas. The original black and white comics Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird published through their company Mirage Comics were for an older demographic than the cartoons. While the first movie pulled its story from those comics, it's the cartoons that got it into theaters in the first place. A tug of war between the two worlds carried through every aspect of the production. Peter Laird wanted to avoid the cartoon's antics of characters like Bebop and Rocksteady, characters who were created to satisfy the action figure and cartoon producers, but moved the franchise away from the gritty realism of the original comics, characters that weren't completely owned by Eastman, Laird, or New Line Cinema. Fans, on the other hand, assumed the next movie would obviously introduce the next 2 most iconic characters associated with the brand. The result was a compromise, 2 new mutant characters that were like Bebop and Rocksteady, but without the potential licensing issues that might have surfaced in an attempt to utilize Bebop and Rocksteady specifically. According to producer Tom Gray, it was strictly a business decision. Toka, a mutated snapping turtle, and Razar, a mutated wolf, were creations thrown together by artists at the Jim Henson Creature Shop. And if those characters were going to be used in any licensed merchandise going forward, they, the makers of the movie, would be the beneficiaries instead of toy company Playmates or cartoon producers Murakami Wolf. Eastman and Laird wanted to move on from Shredder as the main villain. They were hoping to pull from the wider universe of characters and concepts they had created. The production really wanted to keep Shredder involved, given his status as a focal point of every other aspect of Turtles-related media. In the original comics and the animated series, the Turtles face off against a robotics inventor and scientist named Baxter Stockman. His robotic creations called Mousers are part of the iconography of the Turtles brand. The producers of the film thought building all of those robots and shooting those kinds of scenes sounded expensive for their budget and time-consuming, which they could afford even less. Bringing Shredder back was way easier and cheaper. Any scenes that might have originally been intended for Baxter were changed to Professor Perry. Time and budget rule all things, and nearly all of the changes made to what the movie could have been are tracked back to that. A 3-movie arc could have seen the second film introduce Baxter Stockman, who would reveal that the secret of the Ooze was that, just like in the comics, it was created by an alien race. It could have set up a 3rd movie seeing the introduction of the aliens with their robotic bodies and alien cockpits set into their stomachs, and of course the iconic Krang as the final big bad villain of the series. Like the comics, kick the Turtles out into space, bring in the Triceraton aliens as well, and maybe even Fugitoid. Even after he was changed from Baxter Stockman to Professor Perry, he was still intended to reveal the alien origin of the Ooze and his own identity as an alien. But fans of the cartoon, the target audience, may have thought Perry was Krang all along, and that might have created confusion as they know him as a villain through and through.
Santa?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, a perfect holiday gift, rated PG.
Ultimately, they were easy changes considering the quick turnaround time and the possibility that there wouldn't even be a 3rd movie. Change is hard and scary, and when you're handling a budget, it's easier to just go with what worked before. As producer Tom Gray said, nobody trusts their instincts. You go with what worked before and try to modify it a little bit. If it works, then you're justified in using the same thing over and over again.
That's this show.
Hey! What worked in the first movie was the creative vision of director Steve Barron. However, Barron didn't care for the direction the producers were going to take the franchise, saying, "For me, it was poppy, and that wasn't my sensibility," in choosing to opt out of directing the sequel. Unless you ask producer Tom Gray, who suggests that Barron didn't return for reasons that I won't go into, hinting that perhaps Barron hadn't been the best production partner on the first film and that maybe going forward things would run more smoothly. Michael Pressman, a capable and steadfast director with a robust portfolio of television movies, was hired because, as Gray put it, Pressman was a disciplined director. Having gone through the problems with the first picture, I wanted someone who shot fast and stayed on budget. That was my main motivation. My good man Steve Barron, you have been shaded. The cast saw some turnover as well. Kevin Clash was back as both the main puppeteer and voice of Master Splinter. Toshiro Obata was back as Shredder's right-hand man Tatsu. Robbie Rist and Michelin Sisti were back as the voice and suit actors for Michelangelo. Brian Tochi returned as the voice of Leonardo, and Leif Tilden as the suit actor for Donatello. But every other voice and suit actor were replaced. Most notably, Adam Carl replacing Corey Feldman as the voice of Donatello, who, by his own admission, says that he was unavailable due to being in rehab for his heroin addiction, something he had struggled with during the production of the first film. April O'Neil was played by Judith Hoag in the first movie. She was never even asked to return for the second. Producers have suggested that she was difficult to work with and was constantly complaining about the violence in the movie. According to Hoag, she did complain about the violence, especially the violence that was being done to the stunt workers on set. As she said in an interview with Variety, it was a really challenging shoot. They had all these stunt people who came in from Hong Kong who had no union protections. They were getting hurt. As soon as they were injured, they were shipped out of there. It was not the safest set to be on. That's a little distressing. People are doing the movie, doing the best they can on the budget, and I think producers lose sight sometimes that there are actual human beings involved. April was recast with Paige Turco, who had been a regular on CBS Television's daytime drama Guiding Light and ABC's All My Children. She would return to play April one more time in the sequel, Turtles in Time. Despite his fan favorite status, Casey Jones was completely eliminated from Secret of the Ooze, his part essentially taken by the character Keno, played by Ernie Reyes Jr., who had been the stunt actor for Donatello in the previous film. His scary Jason mask and the potential for kids to mimic his actions made him an obvious sacrificial concession. And besides, Elias Koteas, the actor who played Jones in the first movie, says they would have had to pay him a good amount of money if they wanted him to come back. If it wasn't the violence that cut Koteas as Casey, the budget would have. Shredder was back, but James Saito was not. Francois Chow would play the iconic villain this time. New additions included David Warner as Professor Perry, who, if you're a good recognizer, you will remember as the villain Sark from 1982's Tron, and Frank Toka and Razar Welker as the voices of Toka and Razar. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze opened on March 22, 1991, exactly less than a year after the first film. It was the #1 film over the weekend, bringing in $20 million of its eventual $78 million. It was the #2 independent film of all time, behind only the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Domestic performance was strong, international was weak. Despite being profitable, it had a higher budget and made less money overall. That spelled disappointment and was potentially a signal of a franchise in decline. Producer Tom Gray said it was a race against time to get it out 1 year after the first one. When you do that, you really have to compromise. Gray points to several factors for the decline beyond the rushed production schedule, not the least of which was the entire production getting hijacked by the music department securing an appearance by the hottest act in pop music at the time, Vanilla Ice. Everyone just kind of threw their hands up in the air and waved them like they just didn't care. The climactic fight scene became a dance fight. The cartoonish nature turned all the way up thanks to Vanilla Ice's hair, hip-hop dancers kicking it to DJ Earthquake's cuts while two Muppet monsters belch out a bass line. No self-respecting adult could endorse this kind of a cinematic offense as worthy of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Playmates, the company that made Ninja Turtles action figures, had conspicuously not released any toys based on the movie the previous year. Executives at Playmates were actually concerned that the live-action film was going to destroy the turtle business altogether. They made up for that this time around with a series of movie star turtles featuring likenesses that were a bit closer to their on-screen counterparts than anything they had produced before, as well as packaging that tied in with the movie and molded in a soft rubbery material that was probably pretty close to the movie suit materials, if not an actual human-sized mutant turtle. We don't know. Super Shredder, Toka, and Razar also got figures. They're all kind of like the movie designs, but filtered back through the Playmates action figure aesthetic. Because, again, the theme was compromise. Playmates knew who their customer was and wanted to deliver something they recognized. Stick with what works, make minor changes.
Hey, that's this show.
Fans would have to wait until 2021 for NECA Toys to produce movie-accurate figures of Super Shredder, Toka, and Razar, even longer for figures of the Turtles themselves. Details and pre-order were announced in 2022. Figures should be out in the future. Archie Comics, in association with Mirage Studios, was back with another movie adaptation. Licensed Turtles merchandise was already stocked in every aisle at every store. Some of it would now feature the logo from the film and images of the live-action suits. Secret of the Ooze came home on VHS in July of 1991. The DVD would follow over a decade later in 2002, and in 2009 it was re-released on DVD and Blu-ray as part of a 25th anniversary celebration, 25 years since the creation of the Turtles and their first appearance in comics. In 1993, 2 years after Secret of the Ooze, a third Ninja Turtles movie, Turtles in Time, arrived in theaters with predictable diminished returns. Making only $54 million against a budget of $21 million, a sign that the Turtles' expiration date might be approaching. And in 1996, the original animated series came to an end. In 1997, they all but guaranteed it with the premiere of a live-action television series called The Next Mutation, which introduced 5th Ninja Turtle Venus de Milo. And as we know, that was the end of the Ninja Turtles franchise. There have been lots of other cartoons and comics, action figures, movies, reboots, reimaginings, reintroductions. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a brand are resilient and everlasting. Kind of like Shredder, once again crushed at the end of the movie, but this time in a position far more likely to survive than before because he is Super Shredder now, after all. Despite Mikey's "that's the end of the Shredder," there's no proof that it is. And from a brand perspective, it wasn't. Within the film, the creation of the Turtles was just an accident. There was no secret to their existence. There was no higher purpose or meaning, and that's going to have to be enough for these Turtles to develop their own philosophies on life and creation. Now owned entirely by Nickelodeon, there's far too much value in the brand for them to stay away for too long or for anything to kill it. If the secret of the Ooze is anything, it's that the Ninja Turtles are timeless, because when the power of the ninja is strong, and the Turtles will be fighting the crooks until they're all cold gone. It sounded better when I wrote it than when I read it. It just didn't work as a read. Whatever, it's fine. It was the third live-action movie featuring one of the most radical comic book, cartoon, and action figure brands of all time, hitting theaters at a point when it seemed the end of the franchise was looming on the horizon. But before they could confront their future, they would have to first deal with the past. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, released in 1993, is the third live-action feature film based on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles created by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird in 1984. It is simultaneously a step forward and a step backward for the franchise, which, if my math is correct, means it didn't go anywhere. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are back in action, fighting crime from their abandoned subway tunnel home under the city streets. They continue to train with their sensei, the wizened old rat master Splinter, despite a growing sense of futility about their place in the city and their lives ahead as adult-sized hybrid karate creatures. The brief existential crisis is interrupted when they are visited by their good friend, adult human television journalist April O'Neil. She's brought them gifts from the flea market to raise their spirits. For Leonardo, the leader, a book about Japanese swords. For Donatello, who does machines, a vintage radio. For Raphael, who is cool but rude, a fedora. For Michelangelo, the party dude, a literal lampshade. And for Splinter, who taught them to be ninja teens, a strange artifact that she thinks might be a Japanese antique egg timer. Meanwhile, back in 1603, Prince Kenshin, son of Lord Norinaga, has accidentally discovered an identical egg timer after trashing the offices of several royal priests. Lord Norinaga has developed an uneasy alliance with an Englishman named Walker, who can provide him with guns and gunpowder to win the war Norinaga is waging to expand his power throughout the region. Norinaga's efforts are being thwarted by a band of rebels from a nearby village led by a girl named Mitsu, who happens to be in a relationship with Prince Kenshin. And that's when fate intervenes. Both egg timers, time scepters, are activated, causing the people holding them to switch places in time. Prince Kenshin is brought to the future while April O'Neil is sent to the past. The four turtles immediately reactivate the time scepters to follow April back in time to 17th century Japan, exchanging places with four members of Lord Norinaga's honor guard. With any luck, the bulky samurai armor and masks will disguise them long enough to save April and return to the present, because they only have 60 hours to switch everyone back or be turtles in time forever. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 is a direct sequel to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, released 2 years earlier in 1991. Both films building off the mythology established by the first film, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, released in 1990, movies that we have previously covered on this channel. And of course, building on the ridiculously popular franchise that we have also covered that reached into every possible medium of entertainment in existence at the time. The first comics were published in 1984, and by 1988, they already had an animated series on TV and a full line of action figures on toy shelves. 2 years after that, the Turtles were featured in their first live-action movie, presenting exciting new storytelling challenges, new groundbreaking visual effects, and setting records with a whole lot of ticket sales, proving that the Turtles could dominate movie theaters the same way they had already dominated comics, toys, cartoons, and video games. Franchises like the Ninja Turtles, directed at kids aged 3 to 10 years old, tend to have a short shelf life. 2 years to a 6-year-old is an eternity. For the Turtles cartoon to have already lasted 3 seasons and still be strong enough to make the successful leap to live-action movies in 1990 is an aberration. There are hundreds of other cartoons that never made it past a single season. We have covered many of them here on this channel. The production studio for the first 2 films, Golden Harvest, and distributor New Line Cinema knew that they had to take advantage of what could be a very small window to produce more movies after the success of the first film. It would be fair to say that perhaps they should have taken just a little more time to make Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze. Despite an increased budget, several sacrifices were made along the way, choosing instead to rush it out to theaters in less than a calendar year from the opening of the first film. Longtime fans, new fans, and just regular people with eyeballs were quick to pick up on the fact that the Turtles were no longer allowed to use their weapons, and that the entire film turned into a music video showcase for Vanilla Ice, capped off with basically the same ending as the first movie, where Shredder was presumed dead. Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird weren't happy with The Secret of the Ooze and had higher hopes for a third film, as well as an ambitious plan to bring all 3 tiers of the Ninja Turtles media franchise together. They intended to sync the comics, the cartoons, and the movies with a Turtles story that told different pieces of an epic time-traveling adventure. It would kick off in the comics in April and May of 1992 with the 2-part story Masks, written and illustrated by Michael Dooney. Masks follows the Turtles as Renette, the Time Mistress, uses the Time Scepter to project them all back in time to feudal Japan in the year 1373. She needs their help to find the origin of a mystical threat that has begun to bleed into modern time. In the past, they battle against a giant mutant lizard samurai and his evil wizard boss. With Renette's help, they are able to defeat the threat and return home, a series of events that also gives birth to a new ninja clan that calls themselves the Foot. The cartoon series featured an episode in October of 1993 called The Legend of Koji, which finds the Turtles traveling back in time through the use of a time travel device created by Shredder. Transported back to the year 1583, the Turtles meet Shredder's ancestor Oroku Sancho and Splinter's ancestor Hamato Koji. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 was the third part of the media trilogy, going into production with a reduced budget around $20 million, and reduced participation from Golden Harvest based on reduced expectations. Where the first film made over $200 million against a budget of roughly $13 million, Secret of the Ooze only made $79 million on a budget of around $25 million. It was assumed a third film was going to perform even worse still. Because surely the kids had grown up and moved on to other things. That must be why Secret of the Ooze had underperformed. Not because of the quality and compromises, the quick turnaround, not because of ninja rap. The reduced budget for Part 3 meant that they could no longer afford Jim Henson's Creature Shop. It meant that the team responsible for the costumes that brought the Turtles and Splinter and Toka and Razar to life in the first 2 films was going to be absent from the third. Instead, All Effects Company would attempt to deliver the same quality viewers were accustomed to at wholesale prices. They were the effects company behind the Energizer Bunny and Johnny Five from Short Circuit. They had worked on TV shows like Max Headroom and Alien Nation. The suits did look and function differently. Some have said that they look worse, others have said they look terrible. I submit that in this genre of adult-sized hybrid karate creatures for 3 to 10-year-olds, really, what's the difference? Folks, let's remember why we're here. Did you get to see a wisecracking turtle monster cartwheel ninja kick a dude in the face or not? You asked, and cinema provided. A reduced budget also meant that some considerations were going to have to be made to potential characters and storylines that might pop up in the movie as part of the comics movie cartoon shared storyline. The giant reptilian samurai, the devilish sorcerer, and Renette the Time Mistress from the comics were all definitely getting dropped. The fire-breathing dragon from the tsunami box in the cartoon wasn't going to make an appearance, but the artwork in Noranaga's temple in the movie clearly depicts the 4 Ninja Turtles, suggesting that they have been here before, and as Noranaga himself states, these demons defeated his ancestors and have come back for him.
Hey, all right.
They're back.
Hey, dude,
back in time.
Check it out! We're in ancient Japan!
New Line Cinema presents
It's Wet Willy time.
the greatest pizza twirling, sword swinging,
Here, hold these.
head banging
Hello. Goodbye.
turtles in history.
No way!
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
You were expecting maybe the Addams Family?
Rated PG. Starts Friday, March 19th.
The rolling hills of Astoria, Oregon would have to substitute for 17th century Japan as shooting overseas would have been too costly. A Hollywood-friendly city with access to shoreline, mountains, forest, and urban environments, it was the perfect location for films like 1979's The Black Stallion, 1985's The Goonies, 1986's Short Circuit, and 1990's Kindergarten Cop. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 was written and directed by Stuart Gillard. He was a Hollywood veteran, having written for TV shows like Captain and Tennille, Sonny and Cher, Donnie and Marie, and Mork and Mindy. He had directed TV shows like My Secret Identity, The New Adventures of the Black Stallion, and Max Glick. Returning cast members included Paige Turco, who took over as April O'Neil in Secret of the Ooze. Elias Koteas, who was conspicuously absent from the second film, was back in dual roles as Casey Jones in the present and Double Agent Wit in the past. Brian Tochi and Robbie Rist were back as the voices of Leonardo and Michelangelo, respectively. Corey Feldman was back as Donatello after spending the second movie in rehab. New to the series were Tim Kelleher as the voice of Raphael, James Murray as the voice of Splinter. Ninja Turtles 3 was released in the US on March 19, 1993. It brought in over $12 million in its first weekend with practically no competition for the demographic. Aladdin was in its 19th week. Homeward Bound was in its 7th. Turtles earned over $42 million in the US and an additional $12 million internationally, bringing it in just over $54 million total, the second highest budget of the three films, the lowest box office receipts. Was it a franchise that had refused to grow up with the 3 to 10-year-olds who flocked to the first movie 3 years earlier? Was it the creative compromises or just plain turtle fatigue? Reviews were dismissive if they gave it any attention at all. Hal Hinson of the Washington Post noted, quote, "If the first sequel was a photocopy of the original, this second sequel is a tracing of a photocopy. It's the same business twice removed and twice diminished." Marjorie Baumgartner in the Austin Chronicle said, quote, "These Teenage Mutant Ninja epics are not really mind-numbing so much as mindless, and it's unlikely that any new chapter in the series will ever rival the first installment for its sheer originality of concept." Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 was released on VHS and Laserdisc in 1993. Like the two previous films, it ran into some censorship in the UK as the turtle weapons and the word ninja are offensive to the Queen. Their version cuts out a few shots to make sure English kids never find out what nunchucks are. Those changes are restored for the DVD release and every release since. There have been 2 additional Blu-ray box sets released along with the 2 previous films. As of this video, you can stream it on Amazon Prime, Tubi, and HBO Max? It's day to day. The official soundtrack for Ninja Turtles 3 is a disappointing mixed bag of 1980s hits mixed with a Technotronic song that sounds exactly like the other Technotronic song, and a re-release of the original song Turtle Power by Partners in Crime from the first movie soundtrack, a song which does not appear anywhere in the third film. But if we could be serious for just a moment, this soundtrack saved my life. Haunted for years by a tune I could not place, a primal call ringing in my ears since the mid-'80s, a melody I had only heard on a Listerine commercial the year before. I couldn't place it, so decades before the invention of music identification app Shazam, I had no choice but to sit by the stereo night after night, all night, with a cassette tape queued up, ready to record, obsessively flipping from radio station to radio station, hoping someone would play that song. That cassette tape has 27 5-second clips of Duran Duran's Hungry Like the Wolf because it's kind of close and got way more play. I don't know why Baltimore's top 13 hit from 1985, Tarzan Boy, was included on the soundtrack for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 8 years later in 1993, and I do not care. I only know what the relief felt like when I finally purchased the Cassingle. By 1993, there was already licensed Ninja Turtle merchandise everywhere licensed merchandise could be placed. From what we could find, very little was actually produced specifically for the third film beyond items like backpacks, puzzles, keychains, posters, and pins. There were toys, of course. After skipping movie-inspired toys for the first film, Playmates released figures for Secret of the Ooze and Ninja Turtles 3. 10 figures total in 1993 covering all 4 turtles: Splinter, April, Walker, Kenshin, Mitsu, and Warlord. They were complemented by 4 giant movie star turtles with designs inspired by the turtle suits from the movies, and 2 additional giant movie samurai figures, Raphael and Leonardo, samurai war horses with a castle guard and a rebel soldier. a turtle pult that came with Elias Koteas' wit character, roleplay costumes for Samurai Mike and Raph, a samurai sword, and then in 1994, a Shogun series of figures that chrome the samurai armor of the Turtles and rolled in characters from the comics and cartoons like Shogun Shredder and Shogun Shoat. Topps produced a card set, Dell released the novelization, Archie Comics published the official comic book adaptation. A Japanese comic published in 1994 called Mutant Turtles 3 is loosely based on the movie. More recently, you could have been the owner of one of these screen-used suits. The Leonardo, Raphael, and Donatello suits have all come up for auction in the last few decades. Hopefully they are together again in the hands of one wealthy collector. Like the reviews of the film itself, time has not been kind to the suits. On the bright side, NECA was likely inspired by the rotting Leonardo head when they designed the 2022 Mummy Michelangelo figure. As of this video, NECA has released modern action figures of characters from the first 2 Ninja Turtles films and the Coming Out of Their Shelves live-action concert tour, but have yet to announce figures from Ninja Turtles 3. Surely it will be on the schedule of announcements after ALF ships later this year. There has been some confusion over the years as to what the title of this movie actually is. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 was a sequel with a number as opposed to a sequel with a title like the second film, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze. However, when the film was released on DVD and Blu-ray box sets in 2009, the cover of the movie features the name Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3: Turtles in Time. Some people have thought that this was the title of the film since it was originally released. I am here to tell you that those people are wrong. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Turtles in Time is the name of the arcade game that was released in 1991 by Konami as a sequel to their previous smash hit arcade game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, released in 1989. That naming was carried over to the Super Nintendo in 1992 as the third home gaming sequel, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: Turtles in Time. All of that before the release of the third movie. Understandably a name that would have become associated with the time-traveling adventure, but still totally wrong. Ninja Turtles 3 did not kill the Ninja Turtles franchise. It was certainly part of a general slowing down or phasing out of Ninja Turtles as the once dominant franchise that it was. Many normal kids grew up and moved on to other things. That said, plans were being made for a fourth film, and if things had gone just a smidge differently, it is likely that it would have been released in 1996. Ninja Turtles creators Eastman and Laird had already developed potential concepts that the movie would have explored. Tentatively titled Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: The Next Mutation or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: The Foot Walks Again, the third sequel might have seen the Turtles and Master Splinter experience secondary mutations that also endowed them with new powers. There was a potential fifth turtle named Kirby, and the whole thing would have taken place in a post-apocalyptic world where an evil version of April existed, but none of that ever happened. Instead, the Next Mutation was used for the 1997 live-action Saban-produced series that introduced fifth turtle Venus de Milo, which we have also already covered here. A decade later, the Turtles were back in theaters, animated, but still, it counts. TMNT was intended to be an official, unofficial sequel, picking up after the events of the trilogy, acknowledging them through trophies in the Turtles' lair. Shredder's helmet, horned samurai armor, a canister of ooze, a time scepter. It seems to suggest that this is, at the very least, a timeline where similar events occurred prior to this film. The Turtles, Casey and April O'Neil, adjust to life apart as fate has taken them in different directions. They come together once again to defeat a brotherhood of evil warlords and 13 monsters unleashed on Earth 3,000 years ago. Released in 2007, it was the second most successful film after the first film from 1990. It is likely that the franchise would have continued on with animated features if not for the purchase of the Turtle franchise by Viacom in 2009, then relaunching again as a hybrid live-action animated movie franchise in 2014. In 2014, Kevin Eastman said of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, quote, "What we tried to do with the third movie was make it as good of a story as we could. We went through a painstaking level of do's and don'ts, what they could and couldn't do." He continued, "We wanted something that would be good for all ages again. I call movie 1 the best, movie 2 the worst, and movie 3 halfway in between. What more should you ask of a third Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, of any third chapter in a movie franchise? Delivering a film that is, quality-wise, halfway between the first and second chapters is actually a very high bar to clear. To date, this is the best we have from the Turtles. This is the only version of the Turtles in theaters to survive long enough to make it to a third chapter. That achievement speaks for itself, for where the popularity of the franchise was in 1993. Not the end, but rather a moment in time to build a future on." When you've reached the absolute height of popularity, the only way to go is down, and desperate times call for desperate measures. To stay relevant, you may have to add a kid to your cast, kill off a major character, or blow it all up and say it was just a dream. Worse still, you may have to jump the shark. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation. Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation is a live-action television series that ran 26 episodes from 1997 to 1998. It's the result of a bunch of extreme franchise-altering ideas getting turned down in favor of the only one that was literally better than nothing. A team of vigilante superheroes made up of 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, totally unrelated by blood, live in the sewers of New York City. They were trained to fight evil by Splinter, a mutated rat who also acts as their surrogate father. Splinter dabbles in meditative astral projection, allowing his mind and spirit to leave his body for another plane of existence. One day, while taking an out-of-body stroll through the Dream Realm, Splinter receives a warning from his friend Chung-E that the Dream Realm is becoming unstable and that dragons are coming. That's bad. Splinter soon encounters a new terrible evil creature called Dragon Lord, the leader of a clan of dragon-like humanoid warriors who were magically banished to a mystical realm thousands of years ago. Somehow they have found a way to return to the human world through the realm of dreams. That's worse. The only ones who can stand in their way are the 4 original Ninja Turtles: Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo, with special assistance from Chung-E's adopted daughter, Venus de Milo, whom he taught the art of shinobi magic. Born and raised down the street in Chinatown, she also happens to be the long-lost 5th mutated turtle from the same incident that created the other 4 hero turtles and Splinter. This team is older, wiser, more experienced, and packed with 25% more turtle power than ever before. Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation was produced by Saban Entertainment for the Fox Kids Network, the producer and network of hit kid shows like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and X-Men the Animated Series. The Next Mutation was inspired by concepts that were potentially going to be featured in a 4th Ninja Turtles movie slated for release in 1996. Ninja Turtles co-creator Kevin Eastman was desperately trying to get another film out to keep the brand alive and the people who produced it employed. The Ninja Turtles burst onto the pop culture scene in 1984 with the publication of the first issue of the comic book. By 1987, they had a Saturday morning cartoon. By 1988, a line of action figures from Playmates. And by 1990, a feature film, a touring musical show, and a breakfast cereal. 2 more movies in 1991 and 1993 were met with diminishing returns. The market was saturated with Ninja Turtle branded merchandise when it was suddenly overtaken by a new karate-kicking phenomenon, Saban's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. The Turtles were on the verge of being replaced due to oldness. 10 years is a long time for any brand to stay popular. It's an eternity for a brand marketed to children. Most kids have a 2 to 3 year window of attention at best as they grow up and discover other interests. To have been so popular for so long speaks to the Ninja Turtles' ability to hold on to the original audience while engaging new fans. But after nearly 200 episodes, over a decade of comics, and hundreds of action figures that already explored nearly every iteration of the Turtles you could imagine, the creators were running out of ideas. Some of the concepts that were being considered for a 4th movie included the return of Super Shredder after his presumed death, Casey Jones with electro powers, evil April O'Neil, and 2nd generation or next mutations for Splinter and the Turtles. Splinter would have become like the Hulk, where he could voluntarily become a muscular super rat. Leonardo could activate metallic skin like Colossus from the X-Men. Michelangelo could create a human-like appearance around himself. Raphael would have been able to transform into Raptor Raph, a dinosaur-inspired hybrid of himself, and Donatello would have had telekinetic and telepathic powers. As drastic as all that seems, as much as it borrows from other popular franchises of the day like X-Men and Jurassic Park, it was the addition of a 5th turtle named Kirby that would have changed the dynamic of the team the most. But it was that change that would ultimately survive, as the film was never greenlit for production. After plans for the movie died, Saban Entertainment and Fox Kids approached Ninja Turtle creators Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird to see if they could salvage any of it for television. Did they have any ideas that could still work for a series? Well, at least one idea. Eastman and Laird proposed the idea of adding a 5th turtle to the team. Saban liked it, but said they would only do it if it was a female turtle. 4 guys and a girl, a formula that, in their experience, had been very successful. Eastman was on board. Laird was a team player. Despite his reservations, the cartoon had run its course, and they were facing the prospect of the Turtles no longer being in theaters or on television. A certain death sentence for a kids' brand, not to mention the degree to which their own company, Mirage Studios, would have to cut back financially. Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation kept the working title of the film and, according to promotional materials, would act as a continuation of the animated series. However, in execution, it was more of a continuation of the movies, if for no other reason than it was live action. The Turtles' abandoned train station home set was relocated and used as a primary location in the series. The Turtles' costumes were slightly redesigned, their weapons modified. Instead of 2 swords, Leonardo had 1. Donatello's bow staff is now metal, and thanks to the intention to air the show in places where nunchucks are against the law, Michelangelo was given tonfas. Shredder is back as regular Shredder instead of Super Shredder, commanding the Foot Clan, but Casey Jones and April O'Neil are noticeably absent. Raphael has a motorcycle, and the team has a turtle Humvee as a nod to the battle wagon from previous versions of the mythology. Most importantly, the Turtles are now 18 years old, legally adults, capable of voting and being held responsible for their own decisions. And, as clearly stated in the very first episode, they are not, and have never been, related by blood. They are brothers in a team loyalty sense, not actual genetics. Because we don't want it to get weird now that there's a female turtle involved, a potential romantic interest for all 4 hero turtles, truly the most reasonable romantic subplot introduced to the series since it was originally created. Fully unexplored territory.
Be there for the excitement.
Ninja-licious.
Be there for the fun.
Dudes with lunches.
Be there for the action. The live-action TV series.
I love being a Ninja Turtle!
Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation.
Anybody ready for pizza?
Coming this fall from Saban Entertainment.
Cut. Great.
The Turtles' origin story was not changed, but merely given an additional previously unknown angle. Instead of 4 turtles and a rat being affected by the canister of mutagen, it was now 5 turtles and a rat. The 5th turtle was accidentally separated from the group and found in Chinatown, where it was raised by Shinobi Master Chung-E. She was renamed by the Turtles during one of their first encounters with her. She had just defeated some foot soldiers and was holding the head of a broken statue. Like most nicknames in our world, the in-narrative Venus de Milo joke stuck, and that's what they called her, whether she actually liked it or not. Chung-E had named her Mei Pei Chi and trained her in Kung Fu and the mystical art of shinobi magic. Yes, shinobi basically means ninja, and yes, it's a Japanese, not Chinese word, but don't get hung up on details like that if you're going to allow for talking turtle people who live in the sewer and eat pizza. Maybe Splinter and Chung-E had conversations about it over the years because they were friends and knew what each other was doing. It's really not important. What is important is that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were entering a new era of storytelling positioned to compete with other live-action superhero ninja franchises instead of lapsing into obscurity. Further emphasized by their crossover with the actual Power Rangers, a dream crossover for some, for others, the acknowledgement of what the Turtles had become as a brand. They were part of the same media and marketing approach as brands like Power Rangers, Big Bad Beetleborgs, Masked Rider, and Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, on the same network as X-Men the Animated Series. Playmates was on board with the new direction, releasing a full wave of action figures in 1997 with the 4 original Turtles, Splinter, Venus, Shredder, and an elite guard, the new big bad villain Dragon Lord, and a member of his followers called the Rank. Thunder Thrashers put the 5 turtles in different outfits and gave them projectile-firing skateboards. Raph got his street cycle vehicle. The Turtles' battle wagon, a Humvee called the Mutant Marauder, was released, as well as role-play toys like Leo's Katana Sword. 1998 saw a second wave of figures recoloring the 5 turtles and adding snap-on camo armor, or turtleflage, new figures for Big Game Hunter and Turtle Nemesis Bone Steel, Vampire Vam Me, and Tough Guy Talkin' Gorilla Silver. The 4 core turtles and Dragon Lord return in deluxe turtleflage sets, and the whole thing is capped off by 2 of the most 90s designs that have ever 90'd. Leo and Don with their turtleflage camo blitz cycle and hydro skimmer respectively. Not a lot of merchandise beyond the toys, some activity books, ice cream treats, a sticker album. In 1997, Tiger Electronics released a handheld LCD game. You control the turtles in hand-to-hand combat as they fight Dragon Lord or drive the Mutant Marauder Humvee. For a while, there was talk that a video game was in development by Playmates Interactive Entertainment for the PlayStation, but that never materialized, likely due to the amount of time it takes to develop a game versus the short run of the television series itself. Despite the intention to bring back Casey Jones and April O'Neil in Season 2, Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation was canceled after just 26 episodes. Perhaps it wasn't given enough time to find its audience, perhaps it was clear right out of the gate who the intended audience was, and they just weren't interested anymore. Many will point to the low-budget slapstick nature of the show that relies more on terrible puns than it does on actual ninjas fighting with their ninja weapons as the reason it failed. Others will lay the entire blame on the very idea that you would add a fifth turtle, much less make that turtle a girl, a concept that for many strayed so far away from the core as to betray what the essence of the mythology was to begin with. The term "jump the shark" was coined in 1985 to describe the moment at which a beloved series or franchise or anything really has overstayed its welcome. The point at which the desire to stay relevant has resulted in tricks or gimmicks or stunts to provide a quick hit of interest in the hope that it will bring the audience back, or at the very least, prolong the inevitable. Jump the Shark is a reference to an episode of the 1974 television sitcom Happy Days, in which the most popular character, Arthur the Fonz Fonzarelli, must prove his bravery by jumping over a shark while on water skis. Most people remember this as a moment that a once-beloved TV show finally hit a point where there was no salvaging it, the point at which the series ended. However, those people are wrong. Happy Days jumped the shark in its third season in 1977. It would go on to be a #1 rated show for several more years, airing new episodes through 1984. For whatever the term means today, it was not the end for the series, not by a long shot.
So I water skied and jumped the shark, and then came Jump the Shark. That was the episode. Now, you have to understand, we were #1 for like 6 years after that, so nobody else thought we jumped the shark. So, but listen, it's America, and the man should make money. Should write a book, have a game show.
The inclusion of Venus de Milo is frequently pointed to as the low point in the Turtles franchise, a desperate attempt to stay relevant, a trick, a gimmick, a stunt. It is a despised deviation from the norm. The people actually making the show on a daily basis were blindsided by Fox's decision to cancel. They received no advance warning. They attempted to keep the spirit of Venus de Milo alive through blog posts after the production shut down. The posts were written in Venus's voice, referencing things that were going on in the Turtles' adventures in other ongoing media, like the comics unrelated to the Next Mutation. They attempted to develop her relationships with the other characters and try to maintain her association with the mythology. Until 2008, when Kevin Eastman sold his share of ownership to his partner, Peter Laird. The Venus blog posts were taken down and now only exist as memories. But it wasn't entirely Venus's fault. The Next Mutation was canceled because Fox wasn't seeing enough profit for a show they were financing. They didn't own the concept. The ratings weren't the highest, but they would have been enough to continue if there had been more money for Fox. After the cancellation of The Next Mutation, Fox and Saban debuted a new original show in the fall of 1998 about 4 knights with magical armor, 3 guys and a girl, called Mystic Knights of Tir na Nog. For the Turtles, it was the first time since 1986 that there was no new cartoons on television and no movies in or on their way to theaters. It would be 5 more years until the next animated series and 9 more years until the next movie. In 2012, Shout Factory brought The Next Mutation home on DVD. Volume 1 was released in March with 13 episodes. The remaining 13 followed in October. As of this video, the series is available for purchase digitally. However, there are no official sites to stream it. You can find several episodes here on YouTube unofficially. In 2009, Peter Laird sold the Ninja Turtles franchise to Nickelodeon. In 2011, Saban, after having sold Saban Entertainment to Disney in 2001, bought back all of his shows, including The Next Mutation. In 2018, all of those Saban rights were sold to Hasbro. Hasbro, till all are one. Venus de Milo has not been a part of Turtle media since The Next Mutation. Kevin Monroe, the director of the 2007 animated feature film simply titled TMNT, related his experience with Peter Laird and the possibility of using Venus. Quote, "There's absolutely no mention of Venus de Milo, the female turtle. You can't even joke about that with Peter. It's just one of those things that he hates with a passion." It is unlikely that she is ever coming back. However, fans and ownerships change over time. No marketing department is so principled as to never attempt to touch the concept again. If NECA Toys can release a box set of the Ninja Turtles from their live concert tour series that is embraced by fans, there's a chance that enough time has passed that nostalgia can grant Venus a second chance as well. Because her creation and inclusion in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles wasn't the end of the franchise. Like Happy Days before, the Turtles have had incredible lasting success long after their jump the shark moment. So maybe it's time for a new term to describe this specific type of situation, a character asked to save an already sinking ship, to attempt to refresh a franchise that so many in the larger audience had already moved on from. The actual Venus de Milo, the statue, was discovered in a hidden cave on an island in the Aegean Sea in 1820. It was named after a Roman goddess, even though it is a Greek sculpture. It's Aphrodite, if it's anyone. Broken, misplaced, forcibly renamed. A more appropriate name for the turtle than it seemed. Had it been under better circumstances, Venus might be a core part of the very healthy franchise today. Looking back, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a franchise didn't jump the shark. They buried Venus de Milo. Perhaps one day she will be accidentally discovered again. One of the most popular, most profitable multimedia franchises in history, approaching what appeared to be its final days. Its creators doing everything they could to squeeze 5 more minutes of relevance out of a billion-dollar idea that started as a joke, hoping that after the death of the US market, there might still be life in Japan. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Legend of the Super Mutants. This is an incredibly obscure thing, even within the Ninja Turtle fandom. We've done our best to clarify the timeline with the available information, but so much of it is contradictory or incomplete. That doesn't mean that this isn't the best video we've ever made. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Legend of the Super Mutants is a 2-episode original video animation series based on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Produced in part by the same company that brought you the Ultraman series, it is, at the same time, one of the most genuine and one of the most radical adaptations of the franchise. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have returned from an adventure that introduced them to a new friend and new superpowers through magical Mutastones. Chris Mew, a magical fairy, the spirit of light, summoned the Ninja Turtles to the underground shrine of the Neutrino Kingdom to fight against evil invaders Krang, Shredder, and the Foot Clan. She gave them magical Mutastones which allow them to temporarily undergo a super mutation, a limited time morpher. For 3 minutes they can become super turtles with even more incredible abilities. By the turtle powers combined, they'll take mutation to the next level as the 4 individuals merge to become a single entity called Turtle Saint. Just in time because Krang and Shredder have already launched their next scheme. To use the power of the Dark Mutastone to awaken Chris Mew's evil sister Dark Mew and thereby unleash the evil dark power inside to destroy all of planet Earth. It's going to take all the Turtles' power, their superpower, and their combined power, along with April, Splinter, and Chris Mew to defeat Shredder and Krang, or all hope for our world is lost. Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird published the first issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 1984 through their own company, Mirage Studios, an obscure black and white indie comic born from a drawing that was initially intended as a joke between the two creators. By 1989, just 5 years later, the Ninja Turtles had sold thousands of comics, were airing as a syndicated cartoon series, and taking over the toy industry. In 1990, they hit theaters with a live-action feature film and a concert tour, marking their coronation as the kings of kids' entertainment. Around the same time, Batman made a similar leap from comics to movie theaters. The success of the Ninja Turtles and Batman at the box office launched a new era of comic book superhero-inspired entertainment. 1990 was a busy year as Toy Biz kicked off a line of Marvel Superheroes action figures followed by the X-Men. Toy Biz rode the X-Men rocket to stardom, assisted by the hit X-Men animated series. Cartoons sell toys, and the Turtles had profited from that for years. After the disappointing performance of both the second and third Ninja Turtles feature films in 1991 and 1993 respectively, the franchise had begun reacting to trends in the market instead of leading. And in 1993, Saban's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers stole what was once the exclusive domain of the Turtles: karate choppin' and ninja kickin'. By 1995, the Turtles had relinquished their overwhelming dominance of the industry as the tide turned. As the first generation of Turtle kids started to outgrow the brand, the Turtles did everything they could to stay relevant, to capture any and every possible sale that might walk down the toy aisle before they ran out of time. Street Fighter, Transformers, military, birthday clowns, Mighty Mutations, Baywatch, dinosaurs. The entire franchise needed to find a way to take all of the things that kids liked about the X-Men, Power Rangers, and Ninja Turtles and put it in one package. In 1995, Playmates released TMNT Super Mutants, a stunning departure from what fans would ever have recognized to even be called Ninja Turtles. Tall, lean, masked superheroes wearing armor and matching symbols on their chests. Splinter, Shredder, Bebop, and Rocksteady got a toy makeover as well, but all of this without a corresponding mythology to keep kids up to date as to why this change had occurred. The only explanation was the blister cards themselves. From out of the sky comes a new breed of ultra hero, taller, stronger, faster, and green. They've joined up with their super mutant brothers to form a legion of green good guys. According to an article on YouDon'tReadComics.com, Playmates really wanted to hype up these figures in Japan. As such, they shoved money at B Media and Tsuburaya Productions to make a pair of direct-to-video episodes known as an OVA, or Original Video Animation. Meanwhile, in Japan, by 1995, Ninja Turtles were an international brand and had been for years, referred to as either TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or more commonly, just plain Mutant Turtles. The US and Japan have a long history of properties being exported back and forth, many times by multiple entities with different pieces of franchises being licensed for different purposes. We've dedicated a lot of time on this channel to talking about the various lawsuits that Harmony Gold has initiated to stamp out different versions of Macross that aren't Robotech. Voltron, Sailor Moon, Gundam, Battle of the Planets, G-Force, Eagle Riders, Super Sentai, Ronin Warriors. There are tons of examples of Japanese media being imported and localized for the US. Adaptations that, in some cases, changed the nature of what the thing was in Japan to make it more relatable to the US audience. Intended, in many cases, to simply sell the associated imported toys. The same thing happens in Japan when American properties are brought over there. In this case, the American Fred Wolf-produced Ninja Turtles cartoon was imported, edited, and dubbed more than once by more than one Japanese television producer. According to TMNT Entity, the first adaptation was 52 episodes in 1991 called Ninja Turtles. They aired on NHK2 satellite network, leaving out more than 2/3 of the 193 total episodes and shuffling the order. The second adaptation, 2 years later in 1993, Mutant Turtles, featured a completely different cast. This time 102 episodes on TV Tokyo, a major Japanese television network, a reflection of the rabid popularity and fandom of Ninja Turtles at the time. Takara, the same people that made your Transformers and so many other form-changing and combining robot toys for decades, were distributing the Playmates line of action figures in Japan. Just like the US, toy sales drive television programming, and the success of the American toy line in Japan allowed for the rare exception of an American television show to be broadcast so prominently for so long. Mutant Turtles was canceled in 1995, at which time Takara set out to engineer a replacement, something that would, in theory, cater the Ninja Turtles even more specifically for the Japanese market. Back again to TMNT Entity, quote, "A Japanese revival franchise was quickly put together under the commission of Takara. As a matter of fact, the series was already being teased during the ending credits of the TV series with images of the upcoming Turtles anime. The result was Mutant Turtles Legend of the Super Mutants, designs that took their cues from all of the things that were popular kids' entertainment in Japan at the time, most notably animated series like Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon, as well as live-action shows like Gridman and the Super Sentai series. According to SentaiRanger.com, the action kicked off in July of 1995 with a manga series called Super Turtles 1 Holy Mutastones Mystery. This comic sets the stage for all of the new characters, the Mutastones, in the defense of Chris Mew's Neutrino Kingdom underground shrine. The following year, Legend of the Super Mutants, produced by B Media and Tsuburaya Productions, was released. According to a 2014 article on FilmSchoolRejects.com, animation was provided by Ashi Productions. Known for shows like Magical Princess Minky Momo, Space Warrior Baldaios, and the 1985 horror cult classic Vampire Hunter D, Ashi had previously made lots of shows explicitly to sell toys: Special Armored Battalion Dorvac, Machine Robo Revenge of Kronos. The first episode, The Great Crisis of the Super Turtles, The Saint Appears, featured an opening sequence that quickly recapped the events of the manga series, bringing the audience up to speed to jump right into the action. That episode corresponded with the release of the first wave of Super Mutant Turtle toys by Takara, similar to the US toys released by Playmates, but totally different. A fully distinct line of toys with completely new molds than what was released in the US. Where the US figures were regular action figures with missile-firing weapons, the Japanese figures could transform from regular Mutant Turtles into Super Mutant Turtles. The Takara line also featured Turtle Saint as a silver regular Mutant Turtle that could transform into the combined form of the four turtles. The second episode was released either the same day according to Wikipedia or exactly 1 year later according to YouDon'tReadComics.com. It featured the same opening theme music as the first episode, a completely original composition sung by Hinorobu Kageyama, who you might recognize from his work on the Dragon Ball franchise. Titled The Coming of the Guardian Beasts, the Metal Turtles appear, this episode picks up immediately after the first, with Splinter, April, and the Turtles in Japan helping to guard an ancient relic hidden in a temple in Splinter's old village. The Turtles join forces with Splinter's old ninja clan to protect Shinobi Village from Shredder, Bebop, and Rocksteady as they attempt to steal the magical mirror that acts as the guardian of Shinobi Village. All 7 of the stones allow their users to summon new giant robotic metal armors that can transform and combine with the user. Similar to the Ronin Warriors or Saint Seiya, depending on your geography, these toys, however, were released in the US almost identically to their Takara counterparts. Playmates released the Metal Turtles as the Metal Mutants series. The back of the blister card describes a battle older than time itself rages on, good versus evil in a timeless war with no end until now. The mystical spirits have combined with the Turtles to create the ultimate warriors against evil, Metal Mutants. The battle ended in 1996 when the American Fred Wolf produced cartoon series ended. The following year, the original run of the Playmates toys ended as well, and the franchise hit rock bottom with Saban's live-action series, Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation. If you're just now hearing about this very obscure 2-episode original Japanese series, you really only have one option to check it out for yourself, and that is here, unofficially on YouTube. There's never been an official release in the US, and there likely never will be. You can hunt down the original soundtrack on the secondary market. Columbia Records Japan released Mutant Turtles Superman Legend original soundtrack in 1996. You get the original Takashi Ike score from both episodes, as well as the opening theme song Power Up Turtles by Hironobu Kageyama, and the closing theme song Chikyu wa Ogenki by Mokun. Spoiler alert, the Turtles franchise survived 1997. In fact, 2024 is the 40th anniversary of the first issue published by Mirage Comics, and while The Legend of the Super Mutants didn't have a significant impact on the franchise in the US or in Japan, it has been recognized as existing after 1996. For the 25th anniversary of the franchise in 2009, a TV movie called Turtles Forever was produced. It was the series finale for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that ran 7 seasons beginning in 2003. The plot revolves around Dimension X shenanigans conducted by Krang and Shredder that result in the blurring of the multiverse before it was cool. The original 1987 cartoon Turtles team up with the then current 2003 Turtles. After capturing both turtle teams, Shredder reveals the plan to destroy the Turtles across all dimensions, and he offers a handy visual depiction of several of those dimensions, one of which just happens to be the Takara Super Mutant Turtles from 1996. Is it canon? Yes, because everything is canon, because everything is a multiverse. You're welcome, I'm sorry, cowabunga, turtle power. After a decade plus of dominance, the achievement of maximum popularity and exhaustion of every possible storytelling medium and branded product, the end was inevitable. Despite their core audience aging out, these mutant heroes were able to take on the next generation of fans by going back to their roots and delivering a darker, more mature version of their story, once again assisted by Batman. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This video is about the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, not the 1990 movie called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or the 1987 animated series called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We will touch briefly on the franchise called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but focus on the 2003 series called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is an animated series that ran 156 episodes over 7 seasons from February of 2003 to May of 2009. A new era mutated from the slumbering remains of the once great franchise, proof that the story of these hero turtles could transcend generations. For over a decade, a human-sized talking rat named Splinter has been raising his adopted children in the sewers beneath the city of New York. Those children are 4 human-turtle hybrids created through contact with a mutagenic ooze when they were still hatchlings. Splinter taught them to be ninja teens, how to walk, how to talk, how to kill a man with ancient Japanese weapons. He taught them how to move in silence, disappear into the shadows, and navigate the sewer system without choking to death from the smell. His job as a parent was to show them how to stay safe in a world that he believed would hate and fear them if they were ever exposed. But fate intervened, and now the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles use their skills not only to survive the surface world, but to keep themselves safe and protect innocent humans from danger. They'll need everything they've learned and more to face the worst New York City, planet Earth, Earth and the universe have to offer. Brutal gang warriors, evil ninja clans, aliens from outer space, Shredder of course, and for a brief period, robots, criminals, and corporate overlords of the future in the actual future. Leonardo leads, Donatello does machines, Raphael is cool but rude, Michelangelo is a party dude. They are joined in their adventures by familiar faces like April O'Neil and Casey Jones. Together, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are a fighting force and, more than ever, a family. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the franchise, was created as a comic book by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. Issue number 1 was published in 1984 by their company Mirage Studios and immediately became an indie comic sensation. In 1987, Playmates acquired the rights to create a line of toys while partnering with Murakami Wolf Swenson for a syndicated animated series. The cartoon and toy line combo established the Ninja Turtles as one of the most popular and most profitable franchises of the 1980s. In 1990, the Turtles released their first feature film, a live-action adaptation of the series drawing heavily from the original comic series, a movie that likely would have been successful in its own right, propelled higher on a wave of comic book movie excitement kicked off by Batman a year earlier. The Turtles starred in a live-action musical stage tour, their second movie hit in 1991, their third in 1993, but by 1998 the original animated series had ended, as did the single-season attempt at a live-action TV series. After 11 years of turtle saturation, the kids who fell in love with the brand as 5 to 8-year-olds had become teenagers, more interested in adult pursuits like picking out a new lawnmower or reading National Geographic. Like staring at meat on the grill or spitting on cars from an overpass. Like getting mad at sports or balancing the checkbook. I don't know what adults do. In 2000, Ninja Turtles co-creator Kevin Eastman sold his share of the franchise to co-creator Peter Laird. The split between the founders of the franchise marked the end of a historic run that has sold billions in comics, toys, tickets, and licensed merchandise. After a few years of dormancy, Mirage Studios began looking for a company to partner with in the production of a new Ninja Turtles animated series. Most of the networks and producers they spoke with wanted to pick up where the original series left off, in tone and profits, if not in actual narrative, focused on humor, made for younger kids, sell lots of toys. Warner Bros. Animation pitched a series with turtle designs evocative of the original Mirage comics. Artwork has surfaced including all the key players. The series likely would have aired on either the WB or Cartoon Network. But Warner Bros. Ultimately declined to pick up the series, perhaps acknowledging that time had passed since the original series, but not enough for them. And Mirage continued to seek out other options, other interpretations. Lloyd Goldfine wasn't a big fan of the original animated series, but he was a fan of the original comics, and he had experience as a writer and producer of animated series like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Transformers Generation 2, and G.I. Joe Extreme. Goldfine pitched a series inspired directly by the Mirage comics. As he put it during a 2009 Fan Expo panel, quote, "There was all this great material that we could mine that hadn't been used in the original run of the show, and so why not do those stories and make use of all that great stuff?" And that was all Peter Laird needed to hear. He loved Goldfine's concept and directed Mirage CEO Gary Richardson to get that deal done, because that was the show that he really wanted to see and be involved with. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was co-produced by Fox's 4Kids Entertainment as part of Fox's Foxbox block of kids programming, the first in-house production by Fox of its kind. One take. The new Turtles series premiered on February 8th, 2003, reimagined in every way to separate itself from the original cartoon, including a new theme song and an entirely new cast. Michael Sinter-Nicholas, Greg Abbey, Sam Riegel, and Wayne Grayson replaced Cam Clark, Rob Paulson, Barry Gordon, and Townsend Coleman as Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, and Michelangelo, respectively. Any comparison to the original series was pointless. This new show was intended to be dark and more mature like the comics that kicked off the franchise back in 1984, a path they were able to follow, at least in part, thanks to Batman. After the success of the 1989 Batman feature film and its 1992 sequel Batman Returns, Warner Bros. Animation produced Batman the Animated Series, which reinvented the way American television animation looked, the kind of stories it could tell, and the maturity level of the audience it was intended for. Batman the Animated Series was nominated for and won Daytime and Primetime Emmys. It was praised for its writing, sound, music, voice acting, and editing. It proved that subject matter and genres that were traditionally produced for kids in the US could grow up with those kids and appeal to a larger audience at the same time. Batman the Animated Series inspired networks to embrace more complex stories about more complex characters with animation styles that used a lot of black paint, harsher compositions, more dramatic direction, and a tone that was a lot moodier. It spawned an entire universe of DC Comics animation that was still going strong in 2003 when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was being rebooted for Fox.
Ninja Turtles, get ready! It's an attack! A snack attack! A crunchy snack attack! It's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle piece of crunch-a-bunga! Snack attack! attack, Jack. Going to pieces over crunchy little pizzas. A snack attack. Pizza crunch-a-bunga snacks. Sounds like a crunchy snack attack, dude. I take on any ninja who takes my crunchy food. Pizza crunch-a-bunga. Want some? Got some. Awesome. Crunch-a-bungas.
Season 1 of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ran weekly for 26 episodes. Season 2, 3, and 4 added 26 more episodes each, winding through stories inspired directly by the comics and adding new characters and concepts to the mythology. However, in 2006, after 104 episodes, the direction of the franchise changed.
I f***ed it all up, guys. God damn it.
Mirage Studios was happy, but co-producer 4Kids Entertainment and toy partner Playmates Toys had concerns. The darker, more mature approach to the Turtles had been fine at first as a way to refresh the franchise, but business wasn't as good as it had been in the 80s. 4Kids was already wavering on the more graphic nature of the series. One Season 4 episode titled Insane in the Membrane was pulled before it aired in February of 2006. It was the climax of a subplot that involved Baxter Stockman's attempt to transfer his own consciousness into a cloned body. Over the years, Stockman was tortured by Shredder and his goons, his body literally cut to pieces, limbs rendered to the point where only his brain and pieces of his nervous system existed. He sustained his life by creating a cybernetic life support suit. Desperate to be human again, he synthesized a superhuman organic body as a new host for his mind. The transfer process worked at first, but the body began to deteriorate. Flesh dripped from his bones in what could have been a spectacle of Saturday morning body horror. His body was the physical manifestation of his deteriorating mental state. He lashed out, blaming April O'Neil for all of his failures and the monster he had become. After a fight with Casey Jones and the Turtles, Stockman is presumed drowned. Fox Kids aired the March episode Tale of Master Yoshi instead. When that Season 4 episode, Insane in the Membrane, was pulled in February of 2006, Season 5, the final season, was already in production with the same dark tone as the previous 4 seasons. In fact, Season 5, Episode 6 would have been called Nightmares Recycled. It would have focused on the characters Hun and Garbage Man having been conjoined twins, surgically separated, with Garbage Man being discarded, and yeah, that kind of thing left 4Kids Entertainment and Playmates lobbying for change. Despite the episode being written and storyboarded, it was never finished due to the graphic subject matter. Instead, 4Kids decided not to air the almost completed Season 5 and got to work on a new and different Season 5. Playmates wanted to get back to a place where new episodes could be used as a vehicle to introduce, well, vehicles and turtles with new action features, playsets, and inflatable bath toys. The new Season 5, henceforth called Fast Forward, launched Splinter and the Ninja Turtles 100 years into the future, the year 2105, where they befriended child billionaire Cody Jones, the great-grandson of April O'Neil and Casey Jones. The animation style is lighter, and the world is full of aliens and robots and futuristic gear. It is a drastic, whiplash-inducing aesthetic and tonal shift from the previous 4 seasons that gave Playmates the soft reboot they were looking for, selling those toys! Meanwhile, Mirage Studios and 4Kids did finish the episodes that would have been Season 5 if no changes had been made, which they originally intended to release straight to DVD. This lost season, henceforth called Ninja Tribunal, featured 12 episodes that continued where Season 4 left off, ignoring the season-long time-traveling events of Fast Forward.
I f***ed it all up, guys. God damn it.
However, instead of releasing the Lost Ninja Tribunal season on DVD, the first 5 episodes were available to watch on Comcast On Demand in August of 2006, 1 month after the new Fast Forward season began airing on broadcast television. 26 episodes of Fast Forward aired through October of 2007, with 10 more episodes for Season 7 in some stage of pre-production. At the same time, Imagi Entertainment and Warner Brothers released TMNT, a CG animated film that takes place after the events of the 3 live-action movies from the early 1990s. It made $96 million against a budget of $34 million, causing even more confusion for a brand struggling with its identity. In February of 2008, Ninja Tribunal finally aired in its entirety on Fox as lost episodes, once again ignoring the events of Fast Forward, causing fans of the series and future historians a lot of confusion as to which season is Season 5 and which one is Season 6, Ninja Tribunal or Fast Forward.
I hate turtles!
And it doesn't end there. After the events of Fast Forward and Ninja Tribunal, the series was again reconfigured for Season 7 in a post-TMNT CG movie world, with Mirage once again fielding pitches about where to go and how to proceed, scrapping the 10 Season 7 episodes that were in some stage of pre-production.
I sound like a goddamn... Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Guys, I'm sorry.
The result was, essentially, the reverse of the process that got them to the future in the first place, a time travel glitch that puts them back in the past, but not ignoring the events of Fast Forward. It's an all-around compromise with a lighter and darker tone, more and less humor, fewer and more toyetic designs. 13 episodes aired from September of 2008 to February of 2009, all the time travel hijinks and multiple reboots within a 3-year period, ultimately serving to set up the real finale of this entire second age of the Ninja Turtles. That finale was a TV movie called Turtles Forever, which attempted to settle all the disparate versions of the Turtles once and for all, from the original Mirage comics to the 80s cartoon, Fast Forward, and anything else with a teenage turtle on it by utilizing the ultimate franchise failsafe, the multiverse. When all else fails, when you can't figure out which direction to go because you went in so many directions already, just clap your hands and pray to multiverse. The multiverse heals all, includes all, values all, everything that came before, everything that's still to come, and whatever you think of during production. It works especially well for anniversaries like the Ninja Turtles celebrated in 2009. After 25 years, the franchise was muddy, and Turtles Forever homaged it all, wrapping it up nicely with a bow as the 2003-era Turtles met up with their 80s cartoon counterparts, and even the Mirage Comics Turtles that started it all. It aired in November of 2009 and was released on DVD in August of 2010. Playmates was there every step of the way with toys from the first 4 seasons, Fast Forward, and the 2007 CG movie, re-establishing the Ninja Turtles' presence on retail shelves for another generation of kids and collectors. Basic figures, superposable figures, 10-inch jumbo figures, vehicles, playsets, roleplay gear, and dozens of minute variations imperceptibly different to the casual observer. As of this video, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has not been released in its entirety to either VHS or DVD. Some episodes are available on physical media, but the easiest way to check it out is renting or buying via streaming services like Paramount+, Pluto TV, or here on YouTube. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was built as a direct contrast to the cartoon that made it famous, that built its licensing empire. It introduced new characters that have since become part of the regular roster, living on with each new appearance they make. Diminishing ratings and toy sales doomed this series to the same fate as the previous, a brief slumber before an inevitable reboot. While the Mutant Ninja Turtles have always been teenagers, this was the first animated series to treat the audience like they were too.